Saints, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I want to announce that sadly Chris Tamalonis has had to resign from the planning board. His work schedule would no longer permit him to join us. So we thank Chris for his service. I also just want to mention for COVID protocols going forward, we ask that any unvaccinated people wear a mask, and anybody else who chooses to wear a mask, including myself, may do so if they choose to. And we also ask you to maintain, to the extent possible, physical distancing. So thank you. The upcoming meeting dates for the planning board will be July 13th, 2021 and August 17th, 2021. We have minutes of the meeting held on May 18th for approval. Does anybody have any additions or corrections to those minutes?
I did not get a chance to review them.
Lori hasn't had a chance to review it. Perhaps others haven't. Why don't we hold those over until the next meeting? So the first item on the agenda is Donovan's site plan and Nancy Court. Sir.
Thank you, members of the board. My name is Oliver Engel. I am the managing member of Donovan 5 BMAC LLC. We own the plot at number 6 Nancy Court. The meeting agenda says 8, but it's really number 6. And we have been coming here from time to time to request a renewal of the extension to obtain a building permit for this particular lot. The original approval for the site plan was provided on April 12, 2013, and approximately every year thereafter, except because of last year because of the pandemic. We've been coming here to request an approval for 1 or 2 years. Generally speaking, it's been approved for 1 year. I'm here to repeat this process if possible.
Do you have any particular plans with regards to the subdivision going forward? Any near-term
We
plans?
absolutely want to do this. You know, we of course spent quite some resources in order to obtain the site plan. When we bought the property, we operate a business at number 8, and number 6 came with the property when we purchased it. And the goal was that given, you know, the possibilities, business-wise and otherwise, to do so.
Got it.
We have in no ways abandoned this effort at all.
Michelle, I know in some of these cases, we had done a review against any changes in law that would alter the site plan. Have we done that recently with this application? I just don't recall it.
I don't believe we have done it with this
If I'm,
application.
excuse me. I think about 3 years ago, Michael Gillespie did such a review, sent a letter to the board. At the time, there were no additional changes that had to be made. Of course, some time has passed. I can't speak for this very moment, but this was done, you know, many years after the original site plan was provided.
It's unlikely that anything, the site is relatively, it's unlikely that anything in the code that I can think of would have changed. In this case, and the only thing I can think of is potentially floodplain, and I could have Rick Witt look at it. If there's any floodplain on the site, I don't know.
So, if I may say, you know, when, what was the big hurricane that came by? We were surveyed for floodplaining and we passed. It was surveyed, was done. The elevation is okay. That's number 8, but number 6 is at the same level.
Okay. Any other questions by any board members or professionals? I think the one thing I might just say is sort of a forewarning is because this and several other subdivisions have gone on through extensions for quite a period of time. Mm-hmm. This may be the last one that we're able to permit. Mm-hmm.
Can I just make a comment about the number of extensions which are listed on the meeting agenda?
Yes.
It states that they began in 4/6, but actually the very first one we ever requested was on 4/1 of 14 because before that date, the site plan had not been approved, so I'm not sure where these dates come from, but the actual number of times that we've requested this is less than you might assume just by looking at this list here.
Okay. Got it. We'll make note of that. So,
So you're saying we did not originally approve this in 2009?
The site plan was approved in 2013. So I'm not sure where the 4, 6, 10, 6, 21, 11, et cetera, those dates come from. This would have been way before the site plan was approved.
Okay.
well, and as Lori's pointing out, this actually indicates the original approval was on June 2nd, 2009.
We didn't even,
Plan or something?
I'll have to look at it.
Okay,
Okay.
we had not even purchased the property at that time from,
Got it.
okay,
so I have no idea what,
Okay.
okay.
perhaps the extensions were,
Previous owners, maybe?
I'm sorry?
Previous owners, maybe?
Well, maybe it was done in order to extend the possibility of approving the site plan, but I really can't speak totally to that. We bought the property from Mr. Balducci in 2010.
Is this the one that has the shared parking agreement?
Yeah, it's in.
Yes, and there's a right-of-way for the property, the big field next to it, et cetera.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve a one-year extension.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. You're
Thank you.
extended.
So should I take this as the last extension, or should I, we'll come back, I guess the possibility is for us to come back next year and have it denied, I suppose. That's
Well, I think we're in the process now of discussing what policies should be enacted going forward, and so that's something that I'm sure we'll be looking at soon, and we'll be publishing, so we'll know well in advance of the
Okay.
one-year
Very good.
expiration of this.
Thank you so much.
Here, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Okay, the next item for discussion is Travis and Travis, LLR.
Oh, tell them what you want.
Oh, I'm sorry. I want to extend the property, how many, what is it?
We want another acre
Acre, yeah.
out of his
Yeah,
parents'
my father's property.
land before we sell it.
Okay,
And we were just here last year.
Yeah.
We should have done it then, but we didn't. So we can't get up on the TV, but I put a copy of in everybody's file, if you want to look at it.
right. And so you'll be left with one lot will be decreased from 8.179 acres to 7.138 acres, and the other will increase from 3.5 to 4.5.
Right, perfect, yeah.
So still very nice sized lots.
Yeah. And we just don't want any houses in front of us. That'll be straight down Hillside Lake Road. And when we look at our door, it'll just be our property.
Got it.
Is there future plans to subdivide later on?
Ours?
No, not me.
No.
It's all wet ground anyway. I gotta mow quick before it rains.
Is this just for discussion, Jackie, or is this also for action?
Well, this is the first time we're seeing it, but it is a relatively simple lot line realignment, so if the board chooses, we could probably schedule a public hearing at this meeting, and then, because it's a relatively, we saw it, we know he's just trying to accommodate, privacy, and, I don't think there's any environmentally sensitive lands or anything on the site that would cause us any concern.
Got it. And this would require a public hearing?
Yes,
It does per the code, and from a legal perspective, we have no issue with setting a public hearing.
it's the size of the lot line realignment is large enough that it would require a public hearing.
Okay, got it. Any other questions or comments from any board members? Then if not, I'll accept a motion to set a public hearing for the next meeting date of July 13th, 2021.
So moved.
Are you guys
Are-
here for that? I know sometimes summer has vacations and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, we're here.
Okay, great. And you're aware of the publication requirements,
Yeah,
notification
well,
requirements?
that will give us enough time to do the publication and the sign and all that. Okay,
Okay.
okay, sounds good.
So, okay, a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Wonderful. We'll see
Thank you so much.
See you next month. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is adjourn public hearing, Forestier.
No, I'm sorry, the 13th. Okay, so if you want, when you do your publication, that's
Get the plan up.
Usually there's an easel.
I've got it. I guessed it, the code.
So while we're getting the easel, I'll accept a motion to reopen the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're
Do you
reopened.
want us to write it down?
Well, I've already forgotten it because I was doing so many different ones that I've already forgotten.
Oh, great.
It changes every time, so.
It does change.
Good evening, Mr. Gillespie.
Good evening, folks. Nice to be back. So if you recall, I think at the last month's meeting, this is a pretty straightforward 3-lot subdivision. Parcel sits up top, basically a plateau, and then drops off on the back side. We had some discussions regarding some wetlands on the upper right-hand side, which is the east of the property. So we had that located. We ended up getting pushed last month largely because kind of it was a public hearing kind of snafu. So we went up and re-advertised and changed the signs and so forth. So I think we're in good shape at this point, but
I think we are as well. So is there anyone here from the public that wishes to speak in favor or in opposition to the project at all? I think, I don't. So, and I think,
Made any changes, right, since we last saw this?
okay.
Yeah. Has there been any
And I
change?
believe, as I recall, you were able to respond to the questions that were posed at our Zoom meetings, so thank you for that.
sure.
So if there are no other parties to speak for or against the project, I'll accept a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No.
Well, yeah.
Okay. So we have a negative declaration and resolution tonight, and just in the interest of time, I'll go ahead and summarize everything. Negative declaration for Forestier subdivision, 3 lots. The proposed action is consistent with R1 zoning and would not be expected to result in any significant changes to the land uses or character of the surrounding residential neighborhood. The proposed project would not be expected to result in any significant adverse impacts on the environment for the following reasons. It will not generate a significant amount of additional vehicles, noise, or emissions. It will not result in any impacts to historic or archaeological resources. Will not result in any impacts related to hazardous materials. Will not result in any significant effect on air, water quality, or ambient noise levels of adjoining areas. Will not result in unacceptable risk of flooding or major geological hazards. Will not have a substantial aesthetic effect. Will not adversely affect any surface water or groundwater. Will not allow for improper uses within specified zoning districts, will not result in adverse cumulative impacts, will not result in adverse growth-inducing impacts, and is consistent with the town's comprehensive plan. In conclusion, no significant potential impacts were identified as a result of the proposed action. And with that, I'll accept a motion to approve this negative declaration.
So moved.
Thank you. And second by Sarah. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And an abstention. And the resolution for final subdivision approval. The applicant has applied for a 3-lot subdivision of a 4.34 acre lots in an R1 zone. Proposed 3 lots are in conformance with R1 zoning district. Planning board opened and closed a public hearing on June 8th, 2021. The action is considered to be an unlisted action under seeker. And the planning board adopted a negative declaration for the proposed subdivision on June 8th, 2021. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board hereby issues final subdivision approval for the project for the above project is represented on a map entitled Forestier Subdivision, subject to the conditions set forth below. Satisfactory resolution of comments in the CPL review letter dated May 12th, 2021. Driveway approval for all 3 lots from the East Fishkill Highway Department. Applicant to satisfactorily address the potential for drainage impacts below the site. Approval from Dutchess County Department of Behavioral and Community Health. The final plat will contain the written approval of the DCHD before it is signed by the chairperson. Be it further resolved that within 5 business days of the adoption of this resolution, the chair or other duly authorized member of the planning board shall cause a copy of this resolution to be filed with the town clerk and a copy sent to the applicant owner.
Quick question. Did we open and close tonight? I thought we opened in May.
We opened in May, yes.
I think we want it on the third whereas, opened on May 13th.
Good
and
catch.
Closed on June 8th.
Thank you, Lori.
Correct. Okay, as amended by Lori, may I have a motion to approve this resolution?
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sarah. And I'll go through the roll for votes. Board Member Lori G.
Aye.
Ed Miyoshi.
Aye.
Sarah Bledsoe.
Aye.
John Eichman is an aye. And, sorry, you are?
Abstain.
Okay, there's an abstention. So, approved. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you, folks, appreciate it.
Appreciate you coming back tonight.
Yep.
So that completes the formal agenda. Is there any other business to be brought before the planning board tonight? If not, I'll accept a motion to adjourn the.
There is one other piece of business, that the town
Oh,
board has
sorry.
referred the zoning to you guys, which I think was sent to you on, the Taconic Parkway Overlay District. And so what I'll do is, what I typically do is, if anybody has any comments in the next week or so, if you could send them to me, and then I'll write a memo, circulate it to everybody with our comments that I receive, if anyone has any thoughts. This overlay district was created in response to the Route 52 corridor study that was done. There was an industrial land study done, and then there was a Route 52 corridor study done, and then a traffic study done on Route 52. And had been some issues with some salt contamination because of the salt pile from DOT, and then 52 has a lot of traffic issues. So we kind of wanted to take a look at what is possible and how we should sort of think about planning for the future in that corridor. And the overlay zone, basically what it allows to happen there, are the additional uses, is it allows for an assisted living facility, which is a pretty low traffic generator. It allows for potentially for residential uses over commercial. And this is as it is written and not approved yet by the town board. It also allows for what they call neighborhood grocery stores, which would be like a smaller, kind of like a Trader Joe size kind of grocery store, or even like a Frankie Superette type of grocery store. And then it also allows for outdoor dining. Basically, the residential can't occur unless there would be major infrastructure improvements, like would have to connect to sewer and water. So you couldn't have residential above commercial until there was some sort of water and sewer source there. But the zoning would be, if approved, would be in place for that to happen in the future, and potentially attract maybe an investor that sees potential for adding some residential and commercial at the same time.
I saw that this goes down to Blue Hill Road. How far does that go out the other side?
It goes basically to the Taconic ramp.
Oh, so it's basically from the Taconic to Blue Hill Road. I figured it would go out towards like Carpenter Road or something.
Oh yeah, I'm surprised it doesn't go further east.
Yeah, no, it just goes, right now it goes from the Taconic, but that could be a comment, the Taconic Parkway to, just a little beyond Blue Hill, actually.
Right.
To that building that's just beyond Blue Hill.
Yes, across the street from Play.
Yes, exactly.
Is there a reason it doesn't go further right now?
That was just no, not really. There isn't really any reason. That was just sort of the designated, that was the main corridor with uses there. And there are some straggling uses. I mean, typically, the idea in planning typically is to sort of try to condense instead of stretch out. We already kind of have, some sprawl along the 52 corridor, so in this case, it's really up to the town, how they feel about where they want to allow residential above commercial, where they kind of want to create a walkable hamlet, because the idea behind it is it'd be like an emerging hamlet center, potentially, so.
There's a lot of wetlands through there. so
There's a lot of wetlands, and that's,
It's really tough to build, on.
no, absolutely, and that was one of the, recommendations of the study, was to make sure that the environmentally sensitive lands were considered and protected.
Is there any class of property owners that are particularly advantaged or disadvantaged by this thing, by this change?
I don't think so. I mean, Heritage Square is kind of the largest plaza, I guess, in that section. So they are basically built out anyway, but they could potentially put residential, I guess, above their commercial. I think they're pretty full though, right now. They've done a pretty good job of keeping that plaza occupied. There's a couple of parcels that are vacant right now. There's the Golf Dome parcel, which is, some people would argue could be considered underutilized because there's still open land there, but there is an existing business on that. There's, also several parcels. There's a lot of weird split zone parcels in this area. And so one of the other, features of the overlay zone would allow you to extend, if you're a split zone parcel, it would allow you to extend the boundary of your split zone, as long as if you were near a residential property, you still maintained a 100-foot buffer. And that might allow people that have residential uses, like sometimes if you have a split zone, you have a commercial, you can't put a pool, like for instance, in your backyard, or if you have a business and you have a residential that's up abutting it, you have to stop your business zone right there. So, and it's also just kind of difficult to manage these split zone properties. Really, we're hoping to kind of slowly get rid of them. But that's the other feature of it, and I guess, so anybody that has a split zone property could potentially benefit from the change.
Got it. Any
If
other
you have any
questions?
comments, you can send them to me, and then I can wrap them up into a letter to the town board and give them our feedback.
Okay, and when would you like to have those comments?
It would be great if you could have them in the next week or so,
Okay,
and
got
then
it.
get them back.
I have one question.
Sure.
Is there any guidance, say, that provides for buildings in this designated hamlet to be built closer to 52 versus parking lot and then massive building or just green space or whatever it might
So
be?
there's nothing in this that is related to design guidelines, but we could potentially, if you think that they need to be in there, we could say something to that effect. We could say that buildings or any new buildings should be constructed within, you could give yourself a little bit of a front yard, or you could say parking should be in the rear of any new buildings. Any of those things you could recommend to the town board. And there's other design guidelines, I mean, certainly that are related to hamlets, and I could send around, there's generic things that you typically do in what they call, this is never gonna be a busy hamlet center like Hopewell, for sure, but it might have some sidewalk walkability between Heritage Square and whatever potential uses might occur along that 52 corridor, maybe on the Golf Dome property or beyond to the other plaza where the Dunkin' Donuts is. There's some, connectivity there. So, the idea is hopefully to just make it a more walkable, the businesses that are there, make them more effective, revitalize the area, and then also make it a little bit more walkable and potentially take some strain off of the Route 52 corridor.
I like that suggestion, though. I think having more guidelines around what we want it to look like makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think there's a huge opportunity there if we can make it more welcoming to move the buildings forward and maybe parking behind, or, where you're not driving down and just looking at parking lot after parking lot or street after street.
Well, and I can also send around, I don't know if, I think at one point you may have seen the Route 52 corridor study, but I'll send it around again, because they have some very concrete recommendations in that, that you may want to, recommend being addressed in the zoning as well.
Was this some stuff that we considered a couple of years ago?
It was, yes,
Okay.
yeah, from the Behan Associates did the study, well, I don't know, it was probably about a year and a half ago, yeah.
And was anything passed on by the town board at that time, or is this just
No.
a continuing process?
So they did a study, and then we had a traffic study done, and we were waiting for the results of the traffic study before we, made any zoning recommendations. So both the traffic study and the Route 52 corridor study are done now. And, you know, the traffic study identified issues along the corridor with capacity and, you know, having too many driveways and curb cuts along the corridor. So, and also, you know, improvements that may need to happen. But at this point, it's a state road and DOT doesn't have much money. So they typically look for anybody that comes in, the new developer, to do their traffic improvements for them to fix their roadways. That's just sort of how it works now. And, so it's hard to imagine that DOT will be spending any money in that corridor anytime soon, but certainly we can look to see if there's certain traffic improvements that we think need to be made, so that if somebody does come in here with a development proposal, we make sure that those traffic improvements are made as part of the mitigation of the traffic, for that project.
Okay, and this process still encompasses the Hopewell Hamlet?
No,
Thanks.
this is just that section of the Route 52
Okay.
corridor.
Got it.
Yep.
No, excuse me, it's not currently zoned for split zoning, right?
There is split zones currently there. Like, I don't know exactly what year it happened, but at some point, what they did in the zoning, and this is before my time, they kind of went through the town and they took the areas that they considered like hamlet centers, like Wikipe, Stormville, and they put this weird business splotch, like 250 feet in along certain corridors. So you've got these, and unfortunately, it didn't always match with the parcel boundary. So they have like, you know, 250 feet in on numerous parcels, they've got business, and then the parcels behind are largely residential. It's usually business and residential.
Mm-hmm.
And, so it kind of created a little bit of a mess in some of those areas. And you've got houses that still exist that are zone B1. And then it makes it difficult for them anytime they want to put like a shed or anything on there, and they're pre-existing non-conforming. So it's just sort of, you know, been a little bit of difficult, and it makes it difficult for anyone that's, residentially zoned but near all these businesses, or you know, or if maybe they have a small business section, but they don't have enough to really include parking. Because of that happens too. Like, you could have a building, but then you wouldn't have enough parking for the building, so.
Now, I know there's no infrastructure down that corridor, and I know that's something that's gonna be planned. Would East Fishkill issue approvals before the infrastructure?
No, certainly not for the residential. I mean, let's put it this way, infrastructure, sewer and water is really up to the Dutchess County Department of Health, right? So ultimately, if somebody comes in with a proposal and is able to accommodate a septic and a well on there that could accommodate whatever the use is, then it can get approved theoretically. But we're saying that for apartments above commercial, you have to be connected to town water sewer to allow that.
Thank you.
Are we saying town, or are we saying municipal?
Well, municipal, we're saying
Okay.
municipal, yeah.
'Cause that's with the.
Yeah.
that's
Could be
just-
county, it could be county, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
great, okay.
So I'll send the study around, I'll send the Route 52 traffic study and the corridor study around again, so everyone can check those out. And then, I can also send you like, what I would call like model hamlet guidelines, which show you like some of the things that Sarah was referencing, which is like parking behind buildings and maybe bringing the buildings closer to the street to create a street wall, that kind of stuff. I can send all those things around and you can contemplate it for that section.
Great, thank you, Michelle.
Also like a lighting scheme.
Yeah, lighting, signage, that's all also like part of the design guidelines that could be, you know, thought about for the area.
I think it's a unique opportunity to get ahead of some pretty major development that's coming not far beyond that at like a pretty significant intersection.
Correct.
So to put some thoughtful consideration into how we want this to be long-term, because it's really like one step ahead of
Yep.
some pretty good development.
Yeah, this is definitely proactive, and we can always add, like, you know, the zoning is